Coppinger to move for leave to introduce. Do you move, Deputy Coppinger?
So move.
Yes,
yeah.
Will you outline the bill to us, please?
Thanks, Count Corla. Why this bill is needed should be very clear. We have a housing emergency. It's not recognised by our government or not recognised in this Dáil, but it's well known out there in the streets and in wider society. Sorry, will I hush for a minute while? Yeah. The latest homeless figures are 6,709 people. In Dublin alone this year, 736 families have been made homeless, and obviously a huge amount of children. We have a homeless emergency, and the figures are rising relentlessly, with no action being taken by the government. Now, one of the key reasons is rent increases, and the Anti-Austerity Alliance has proposed real rent controls. But there are other key reasons that people are becoming homeless, and a lot of it is related to dubious terminations, as they're being called, by threshold evictions for dubious reasons. Last January, just in case the Minister thinks the figures look good, they're going to rocket in January, because that is the pattern. It's a grim month for evictions, and therefore our bill is timely on the 17th of January. Last January, 500 extra people were made homeless on the month before. A lot of landlords wait until the Christmas period resolves so that they don't turf children out onto the street before Santa arrives. But that doesn't stop them then when Christmas is finished. There were 109 extra families made homeless in January last year on the usual figures, and obviously a huge amount of children. Now, this has been happening for a number of years. But there's been a completely impotent response by the government. The sacred market mustn't be interfered with, we were told, for several years. But obviously the market does not work for people who are facing eviction, homelessness and rent increases. We were told that there was no need to interfere, the market would sort it all out. The government has obviously had to recognise that that's not the case. Now, Dublin West, my own constituency, is a homeless black spot. And based on a survey that we've done of our caseload in the constituency, 31% of families are made homeless because of eviction, because of sale of a property being used. That is banned in other countries. We propose in this bill that that will be banned as a ground for eviction. If somebody really must sell their property, they have to do so with a tenant in situ. That's the case in Germany, it's the case in the Netherlands, and it's actually the case in Scotland, which is a very similar jurisdiction to ours. But we have such priority given to property rights in this country, the government will not consider it. That has to be cast aside in a housing emergency. The second reason that we propose to target is this dubious thing of a family member suddenly being required to move in by the landlord. Now, sometimes that is genuine. We're not proposing it be outlawed, but what we are proposing is that compensation would have to be paid by the landlord if moving a tenant out of the property for that reason. And again, this happens in other jurisdictions like the Netherlands, and we propose, for example, a 6-month rent would have to be paid in that case to at least assist the family from preventing them being made homeless. Our bill also proposes getting rid of the 6-month rule, that after 6 months a tenant actually loses any protection that they have. We propose changing this to 2 months. We also propose to make tenancies indefinite. Why should they? Why should it be that after 4 years, and I know the government's proposing making it 6 years, but we have families with 8, 10, 11 years in a property, and suddenly people can lose all of their rights after 4 years. It's completely and utterly unfair. We have to get rid of that loophole. Now, our bill also clarifies landlords and who is the landlord. Threshold report that they've dealt last year alone with 371 cases of receivers and banks making it very unclear to the tenant who is the landlord. And we propose changing that. Now, we hear several myths, we've been hearing them from the Minister all morning, that landlords will be driven out of the market, will decrease supply if we bring in such measures. Why would they leave the market? It's absolutely lucrative for them. The average rent increase at the moment is €200, 25%. So why would they go? And this myth that they're leaving the market, in 2011 there was 237,403 tenancies. In November this year there was 323,602.
Thank you, Deputy.
This year alone, there's 4,283 extra landlords. The idea that they're going to take their houses off the market, where will they bring them? And why wouldn't the government impose a vacant house, vacant property tax
Need to conclude
stop
now,
that
Deputy.
happening?
The time is up.
So, yeah, thank you, Count Corla. We will be moving this bill in January. It's exactly what is needed to prevent homelessness from developing and expanding. And if the Minister doesn't agree, we'll be challenging all of the government parties and Fianna Fáil to debate this issue in constituencies like
Thank you
Cork,
very much.
in Dublin South West and in Dublin West, and let's see if the ministers and their counterparts in Fianna Fáil are willing to debate this with the people who are affected on the ground.
Thank you, Deputy. Is the bill being